I want to introduce you to the latest member of my journaling lineup. This little traveler's notebook is my financial or cash flow journal. Please bear with me. A lot of what I show you in this video is going to be blurred out because it is my personal financial information and I don't really want to share that on the internet with whoever. You might remember from some of my previous journal setup videos for a new journal or even month to month that I used to include a cash flow tracker at the beginning of every journal. My most recent journal does not have one of these because it's going to be in here instead. I was also including a monthly spending tracker page in my regular bullet journal monthly setups. I am no longer doing that anymore either because that information is also going into this journal here. I am going to be transferring that beginning of the year, first 6 months cash flow analysis into this journal as part of this video, and also setting up one for the second half of the year as well. First, let's talk a little bit about the journal itself. This one is from Archer & Olive. It's traveler's size. There's something about this notebook width and height that just lends itself to lists, which is basically what I'm doing here, is just lists of everything that I've spent month to month or throughout the course of the year. I just already had this journal in my possession. It's from one of the Archer & Olive subscription boxes that I got, and it has this little caravan on it. It's a very kind of textured fabric, so I don't know if I could put a sticker over that. I'm not really into the caravan. I have been considering, actually, I have a couple of iron-on patches that I feel like could do a really good job of covering this, but I'm not sure about putting heat on the journal either, if that might interfere with things. This one's probably a little bit too small, which is a shame because I really like how that looks, but we could fully cover it with one of these koi and then maybe even make two. And I feel like there's some connotations there about wealth and abundance and flowing of things. I don't know. My partner's mum's into feng shui. I should run this by her. Not a very superstitious person myself, but I do kind of think that that looks cute as opposed to this. Anyway, let's just have a little look at what I've been using this journal for so far. Again, things are going to be blurred out. I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry at all. I've popped my name in the front, but I'm keeping it pretty minimal. I've just written cash flow journal on the first weird, awkward, loose page, because what else do you do with a weird, awkward, loose page? And then we get into the good stuff. So I'm keeping the ribbon bookmark that has the A&O charm on this page so I can refer back to it, because I need to refer back to it every single month. This is where I've divided my spending into categories. The beginning of this journal is just spending because I was still keeping track of savings things in my regular journal. So I've listed out the things that I spend on. I've assigned each of them a color. So some of them are mild liners, which I actually acquired specifically for this journal, and some of them are just your regular old Tombow jewel brush pens that I use the heck out of because I didn't have enough mild liners to do all of these categories. I do still have a little bit of room to grow here. There's a bit of space down the bottom, and I've made myself a reference. So the 277 here refers to the 277 Tombow jewel brush pen, so that I know that's what that means. The ones that have ML next to them, those are the mild liners. So this way I can keep a reference of each color and use the same colors to color code those categories month to month. That really helps me to keep things straight in my brain, even if I don't remember that the car category is always going to be the 192 Tombow, this one right here. I still, when I'm using it, it makes it easier for me to keep them separate in my brain. And on the right page here, in January and February, I was still tracking my spending in my regular bullet journal. So I've included a little summary of those here just so that I can have all of that information accessible in the journal. So it kind of starts from the beginning of 2024, even though I didn't actually start this journal until March. So this is January and February recap, blurred out because you don't need to know exactly how much money I spend on things, but I do. It means that I'm more conscious of my savings and my spending patterns, which really helps. I have been adding a cover page on the left page here for each month. I'm really only using 4 pages to a month at the moment, and I'm matching them with a little bit of a theme to go with the original bullet journal setup. But this journal that I was using for my regular bullet journal for the first half of this year has watercolor paper, and I made it my mission to add watercolor or gouache paint to every single setup throughout this year. I was not going to bring paint into this journal, so I just did the stickers and the same pen and I left it at that, and that's going to be kind of a theme. Over here I have my regular spending log, so if we use the one that's here in March as an example, the way I usually had it set up, this table and this table are exactly the same: item, category, and cost. And then down here is my little summary, so category and the total that I spent on that category. I would go through here, say I had like, this was my rent and this was groceries and this is my phone bill, and maybe they all go into a life expenses category. I would add up all of the things categorized by life expenses, put a little check mark next to it or a little dash so that I knew I'd added that one to a tally, and then I'd put the totals over here, and every one that had a little check or a little line next to it I knew had been counted towards something, so they should all have one by the end. Then I would take those categories and I would transfer them into the cash flow tracker back here that we looked at earlier, so that there's a record of how much I spent across each category. These are all the categories that I track. For now, I'm just continuing to use this cash flow tracker in this journal because it's all set up, so why the heck not? But this is moving obviously into this one from now on. Something that I've done to level up that system to make it easier on myself at the end of the month is including these color codes so that I know that living is always gray. So anything that's been highlighted gray throughout here, gray isn't the most obvious jumpy outy color. So for instance, we'll go with green, which is dance. Anything that's this kind of dark, bright green, things that are related to my dance hobby pursuits. This table is almost the same as what I have in my regular journal for the older version of this, but the table this time has item, category, cost, and a little extra box at the right side that I can put my check mark in so that it's a really dedicated, obvious space and things aren't getting too messy. Sometimes I would count wrong. I'd have to come back and recalculate something. And if I'd done all my check marks on the left side, then it was getting really confusing and I'd have to move them to the right side and things got really messy looking. So I just thought incorporating a space for that mark to say, yes, I've counted this thing would be a useful way to do it. I don't add the color until the beginning of the following month when I've finished all my spending and I'm actually going through and filling out this March spending or end of month spending overview page, which is basically what that small category section was on the March setup that I showed you just before in my regular journal. I can pre-fill the names of each of the category, but when I'm actually filling them out, say with living here, I'll grab my gray mild liner, I'll highlight the living category here, and then I'll refer back to these ones and I'll say, this was living expense, this is a living expense, this is a living expense. Once I've highlighted all of those, I'll grab my phone calculator and add them up because my mental arithmetic not so good. I'll add the number over here in the total column, and then I'll move on to the next one. And that way it keeps me really on track knowing, okay, I'm just looking for light blue. I'm just looking for things that are green. It means that I'm missing less than I was when I didn't have this color coding system. So I like that. It does mean I need to keep all of these colors kind of together and handy at all times, but that's going okay so far. That's actually it for the March spending. It's basically the exact same thing for April. It's a really easy, chill setup. I can do it really quickly. I don't have to add the decoration if I don't feel like it, but I really like how this is working out so far. And for now, I've just been transferring this information over into the cash flow tracker that's in this journal. But as I mentioned, because we're coming up to the end of June right now, I have filled out most of my June spending here, but the month isn't over at the time I'm filming this. So there's still a bit of time for me to spend some stuff. So I'm not going to add the colors until I've finished out the month and I'm doing my overall stuff. So this is where my spending overview page is going to go for the month of June. Because that is the end of June, that brings us to the 6-month point of the year. I don't have a cash flow tracker set up for the annual stuff for the second half of the year, so that's something we need to do. And I do also want to bring my cash flow tracker from this journal into this one, so I thought we could do that together. There's plenty of room here to do 6 months to a spread in the same setup as I did in my previous journal, so I'm just going to fly with that, I believe. Whenever you're working in a new journal like this, if it has a lay flat cover and a hard back on it, I always find it's helpful to put something underneath here, so I'm just going to pop a bit of washi tape there. This one's going to be where I transfer in the information from my previous cash flow tracker that I started at the beginning of 2024, but I'm going to use the exact same layout again for the second half. So we'll just set up one together, and then by the power of editing magic, I will make it reappear on the next spread too. This top section here, sitting at the very top of the page, is where we're going to track income, any money coming in. I have a few different income streams, so I find it really helpful to keep track of those because they fluctuate. My income is not steady. These boxes are 5 spaces wide each, and I've left 1 space blank on the right side. I got this number just by adding up the total number of dots from left to right across the page, which is 38, which is actually the same as a vertical measurement on most A5 journals, and dividing that by 7 because I wanted to have columns for each of the 6 months of the first half of the year and 1 extra one as a title. And the number it gave me was not a perfect 5, but it was 5.6 or something like that. So we rolled with 5 and some gaps. So we're calling this one income. Not my best line work ever, but it's actually not a big deal. One thing that will, oh, I added an E to June. Let's just pretend I didn't do that so they're all consistent. One thing that will annoy me about this is that the way the page is set up kind of forces you to use the middle, the binding. I'm probably going to just orient all of my numbers to the right side of this box because there is enough room to write there, and then it won't really be an issue. I won't have like a couple of numbers over here and a bunch of numbers over here. Should be fine. So my 3 different income streams here are lifestyle, which is any lifestyle photography I do. That's weddings and portraits. Commercial for commercial photography, which is for businesses typically. And ESA, which is Erin Smith Art, which is this here YouTube channel and associated such things. Then we're jumping down a little bit lower on the page and we're going to set up this second section, which has got different spacing to the above because I want this to have one more column. So this one's going to be for my long-term savings and investments. As a result, rather than columns with 5 spaces like the above, we're doing columns with 4 spaces instead. And that might seem a bit weird, but it's because I want to include an opening column over here so that I can write the opening balance. I'm generally tracking this stuff on the first day of the following month. So when I'm writing down how much money I have in the bank, on the 1st of July, it's tracking how much money I have in the bank for June, if that makes sense. I'll be writing it in the June column. With that in mind, if I don't include an opening balance amount, then the first stuff that I write down in the first column will actually be the information from the end of January, which is not an accurate kind of opening point for the year. So that's why I am including this. This is, I'm going to call it savings, opening balance in this column, and then apparently we're doing whole month names here. There we go, that'll do. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm really not putting any pressure on this one. Oh, I forgot. So I had actually just left this blank underneath in case I ended up with a different income stream that I didn't foresee, but these 6 months are nearly over and I haven't needed it. So I'm going to turn that into a total row instead. And I'm going to actually do the same here. In fact, I may have made this savings section a little taller than it needs to be, but it's not a big deal. And down the bottom is the spending tracker. So this is the big master overall, all in one place at a glance kind of record of all of the dollars that I have spent over the course of these 6 months. You do not have to be as comprehensive as me. I just feel like writing down everything that I spend is a good habit for me. I'm pretty good about money. I don't feel like I waste it too frivolously, but having to write down every single thing that you spend money on does make you consider your purchases a little more carefully before you commit to them. This is going back to the same configuration as the top row where we had each of the boxes take up 5 spaces horizontally. So 5 across, 5 across, 5 across, plus a little bit of binding in that case. Oh, I've messed some of them up. I messed one up already. It's gonna be okay. So these spending categories, let's add them along this left column here so everything's in place. And across the top, of course, the months, which I managed to letter correctly this time. I'm just gonna shore up this line here a little. We live for a white paint marker. And that's the bones of the cash flow tracker. So whatever money I make in lifestyle photography in January, I'll write here. Whatever money I made in commercial would go here. Whatever money I made on YouTube, etc., will go here, and then the total amount. And I can then compare, say, commercial was really good in January, but it was down in February. And maybe that's a trend that happens every year, and I can look back on my older stuff and observe those and see if there are fluctuations, or see if there's a part of the year that I really need to like hustle in. The savings section, I haven't actually added headings there, so let's go ahead and do that. We've got a section for savings that are in the bank, a section for savings that I invested into stocks, and then a section for super, which is a short way to say superannuation, which is what we call retirement savings in Australia. As a self-employed person, I have to contribute to those myself, so it's something I need to be really aware of. So this is like the master list. This keeps me on track for all of the saving stuff and has the spending in the same place. So I can see something like, say in January I earned, pick a number, $4,000, but in January I spent $6,000, then I know something a bit screwy is going on, unless I booked a whole holiday in January, in which case, you know, maybe it's fine because that came out of a specific saving account, but you know, generally that's not a sustainable way to live, so that's always a good thing to keep in mind. Actually, this probably needs a heading, doesn't it? This is my favorite pen right now. It's the Pentel Touch Brush Sign, whatever. They seem to have a few different names depending on where you go. And then I'm just going to transfer exactly this onto the next spread, except instead of January, February, March, it's going to have July, August, September, so on. And this line will be correct. There we go. Now we've got 2 6-month kind of wrap-up spreads, so I can kind of retroactively add the information from the first half of the year, from back here, from the previous journal. That information already exists on a spread over here. I'm just moving it into this one. Oh, sorry, this one for the first half of the year. And then I will continue to keep that going. The second half of the year's kind of monthly pages, like these ones, will actually go after this. And when we get to the end of the year, at the end of December, I will probably do some kind of wrap up overall, plus or minus, like this is what I started at for my savings and this is where I ended the year, as kind of a reflection thing as well. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see me set up. I'd be very curious. And also, I've been wondering if I should be including these monthly setups along with the bullet journal setups, like as part of their video, just kind of pop out the little spending log page at the end of the video and set that one up in there as well. Or if it's kind of something that once you've seen it and you don't really need to see it, let me know your thoughts on that. I'd be very curious to hear what you think. So on that, we might as well go ahead and set up some July information over here. The July theme in my bullet journal, that's this journal here from Tifosi, is this lovely Bridgerton theme, using stuff from Paper Monogatari, and this was one of last week's videos. There's a link up here in case you want to see, and in the description too. Here are all my leftover bits and pieces from that setup. I'm not going to go too hard on it. This journal is not about the pretty for me, it is about the function, so I don't want to spend too much time on decorating a cover page. I'm really just here for the tracking of the things. In fact, first let's set up all of the functional parts and then we'll come back and we'll worry about the pretty. I've been doing this for a few months, so I don't feel like I need to pencil this one out first. And also I don't leave any space on the page blank. I take up the whole thing with this table. So I leave 2 spaces from the right side. This is my column for ticking off the things that I have included. And we go 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces across for the first column. This is, well, it's not the first really if you're going from left to right, is it? It's the third. But this is the cost column. 1, 2, 3, 4. Over from there again. This is the category column. And then I have more space than I ever had in my bullet journal to describe the thing that I purchased. So this is really helpful if there are things that you buy more than once in the month that you need to differentiate. Like if you always get petrol or fuel for your car at the same place, you can put petrol July 3, petrol July 15, and know which one you were referring to. I usually just go through when I'm paying my credit card bill. I pay it off in full every month and I go through and add all this stuff down at the same time to make sure that I'm aware of everything. Item, category, cost, little tick. The next page is exactly the same. So let's go ahead and do that now too, because it's pretty quick. Over here on this side, this is our end of month wrap up. And the way I've been doing this one is I'm coming down 7 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the top and in 1. Likewise on the other side, in 1 space, and the same from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And those are the outside edges of my boxes here. Then we've got just 2 columns here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces from the right is the width of this smaller column. The left is whatever's left over. We make an extra space at the top for headings and underneath for totals. So we'll say category goes in the bigger column and total. So whatever total I spent that we've added up from within these pages on that category gets written here. And then big total section down here, so total amount spent for the month goes in that little space there. Now, that's all the functional stuff. How quick and easy was that? We can get into the pretty, which means I think I used this one for some lettering in my July pages. So I'm just gonna letter July over here, make it really curly just for fun. That looks like an L, oh well. I've also been adding a little 2024 on each of my cover pages, just in case some incarnation of future Erin has no idea what she's looking at. Try to make it really easy for me for the future. Let's just go with a little bit of layered washi tape, because that's the easiest way to do anything in a journal, in my humble opinion. Probably just layer 1 or 2 washis, add a sticker over the top and call it a day. These are all from Paper Monogatari, in case you were wondering, which is Anna from Journal Away store. I'm really not even thinking about this. I'm just sticking in a way that takes up space. When you're doing a setup like this where it's really haphazard and you're just layering things together, the best way I found to do it is to just place your couple of washi tapes down, and then when you place a sticker, place it at the junction of those things. And that's going to really work to bring them together. See, I think that'll do. I think that's the cover done. And then over here, I've been adding a touch more. We didn't use this one, so let's use this one. And again, I'm not thinking about it. I am leaving space to put, I've been putting a little heading that's like, this one will say July spending. So that's what it is. Actually, I really like that, just like that. Real simple, that's pretty. And there we go, we're set up for the July spending log. So let's just backtrack a little bit. We've got the cash flow tracker that's going to cover the first half of the year, the cash flow tracker that's going to cover the second half of the year, and then we've got the monthly setup for July, which matches the bullet journal theme somewhat without having to be time consuming and difficult. Space to track everything that I spend in July over 2 pages, and then the July spending wrap up at the end here, where actually let's go ahead and add the categories in here so that it's fully ready to go. It's occurring to me the frequency with which I'm going to need to write this list, that possibly a printable would be a good idea for this. Then I could just print it on some sticker paper and I'd be good to go each month, kind of like my core pile rating stickers that I use in my reading journal. Now she's ready. And that is the gist of my cash flow journal. I hope you've enjoyed this little peek inside this entirely separate journal. Main reason I'm doing this is so that I don't have to do all of that blurring out in my regular flip through videos, because that is frustrating. And after this, unless we're doing those monthly setups together as part of the bullet journal videos, then you may not see the inside of this journal on this channel again, unless you want to see how I do the wrap-up page at the end of the year. So things to note. Please do let me know your opinion on whether or not this needs a patch to cover the kinda ugly caravan that I do not like at all. I do also think the colors of these koi look pretty good with the little slubby textured bits on the journal. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. And also please let me know if you've ever ironed a patch onto a linen journal before and how it went, because I am really worried about ruining it. In case you'd like to keep watching, I have a link up here in the corner to my July bullet journal setup that matches the July pages we've just done. And underneath that, there's a little link here to my most recent stationery vlog throughout May and June. So we can hang out together and talk about stationery some more.